Hey, what's happening, y'all? Welcome back to the Media Goose channel. It is I, the Media Goose, your friend Ryan, and the goose is loose, baby. Her. I'm coming at you today with the next installment of my MCU review. We are talking Ant-Man. Ant-Man is an excellent movie. I think this is as good as the first Iron Man movie, which I hold as the template that all future origin movies in Marvel and honestly in most of superhero movies continue to follow. But Ant-Man delivers at the same level as Iron Man, in my opinion. I think that this movie, to this point in the MCU, I would put it top five for sure. I think my top five are at this point Guardians, Winter Soldier, Avengers, Iron Man, Ant Man. They knocked it out of the park with this movie, y'all. Scott Lang, Ant Man, played by Paul Rudd, is the everyman. He is the most normal character of all of these Avengers characters. He is just perfectly balanced as a normal guy, but also incredibly competent. In like the first 10 minutes of the movie, you know he's a skilled thief or burglar because he does not ever threaten people. He's very clear about that. Um, but he's also a father who cares deeply about his daughter Cassie. And at the beginning of the movie, when he gets out of jail, that is kind of his northern star. And Cassie wanting to be able to provide for her is his main focus. So let me real quick just read off a description of the movie I wrote out. It's kind of like the first act broken down, and then I'm not going to worry about explaining the rest of the movie. But at the beginning of the movie, we see Scott get out of jail. Right away, we know he's smart, he's brave, because he's fighting a guy in jail, and also the crime he committed to get in jail was very Robin Hood, where he was taking from the rich to give to the poor. And again, we find out he has a daughter who he loves very much, and that is kind of his moral compass. We meet Paxton, Maggie, and Cassie, his family. Paxton is the stepdad, who also happens to be a Copco figure, and he's played really well by Bobby Cannavale. He's really good. He's funny in a lot of stuff. I think he's also in The Other Guys. He's in like one scene and he steals it. He's hysterical. He's a really good actor. Judy Greer as his ex-wife and Cassie, his daughter. I really love that whole group dynamic. I think having Paxton be a cop and Scott be a criminal makes sense on a lot of levels, and it also keeps the family storyline relevant with Scott's thievery and with every level of the story because the cops are constantly in pursuit of Scott. So it really keeps everything tied together nicely. I think that's one of the things I'm most impressed about with Ant-Man. Every different kind of group of characters we visit are all equally important to what's happening in a really impressive way. And continuing that theme, now we're going to talk about Scott's roommates, his crook roommates, who are Luis, played masterfully by Michael Pena, Kurt, played by David Dasmalchian, an excellent actor. He was also in the Suicide Squad. Hell, he's been in a lot of stuff. He is a great actor. And Dave is T.I., because T.I.'s an actor too. And this group is hysterical. I really feel like Scott and these guys give a real Ocean's 11 vibe. And apparently that was... So this movie is directed by Peyton Reed, but it got a writing and executive producer credit to Edgar Wright, the director of the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and At World's End. He was the original writer and director of this. Ant-Man was going to be dropped in Phase 1, but they ended up having creative differences, and Peyton Reed came in. but apparently in his first kind of version of the script before Feige had it rewritten without really telling him that was going to happen, and it kind of changed things, and that pissed him off, and ultimately he left. But apparently the gang, like those three, were originally like a 15-person crew, much more like an Ocean's movie. I honestly prefer this pared down version of the crew because it integrates more smoothly with the other important group of characters, the Ant family. So now that Scott's out, he needs money. And he goes to his crook roommates for a job. Luis is the main member of that team. He picked up Scott from jail. And again, I said masterfully played by Michael Pena. He is objectively maybe the funniest character in the MCU. He is hysterical. Every line works. Those little moments, I call them Luis history, like drunk history, because the actors have to like follow Michael Pena's cadence. So it is very drunk history in its style. So Luis history. Those sequences are hysterical. And I think it's worth noting they were added after Edgar Wright left because he's like the comedic genius he is. I bet a lot of people just go, yeah, that must have been Edgar Wright. That's actually part of the stuff that was added, and it's maybe the funniest part of this movie. And I honestly feel like Luis and Michael Pena are like one of the most underutilized characters in the rest of the Ant-Man trilogy. They kind of go away from the characters that really make this movie work the more this trilogy goes on, and I think that's a failing of realizing what made this movie very good. And again, getting to the Ant family, because when they do that heist, it is the Ant suit, the Ant-Man suit. And it leads to the first time Scott puts it on, and we have our first shrinking sequence in this movie. And I really feel like Marvel absolutely nailed the shrinking in every scene. At no point did the CGI not work, in my opinion. It was thrilling to watch, and Scott being completely panicked again, showing you that he is the everyman. He is, imagine any of us getting dropped into the world of these ridiculous superhero characters. That's Scott Lang, and Paul Rudd perfectly sells the anxiety and terror of all of that. It's really well done. And of course, the movie did start with Hank Pym fighting that guy in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters with Haley Atwell Peggy and John Slattery as Howard Stark. That great opening scene. Hank Pym, who was previously Ant-Man, who I'm pretty sure was working with Peggy and Howard, probably as like almost a mercenary for hire, but it didn't work out because Hank wanted to keep his tech out of the hands of Stark because he saw it being weaponized. And of course it would have been. That's what the Starks were up until Tony changed things. So Hank ultimately destroyed all traces to his tech that made the Ant-Man suit possible, and he ends up basically letting Scott steal the suit, and he had basically recruited Scott to become the new Ant-Man because he's expendable. His daughter, Hope Van Dyne, who I think would have had her name changed because she hated her father, they become estranged and like far apart from each other because Hope knows Hank wasn't telling her the truth about her mother Janet's death and how it all happened. And those two interacting is always excellent. Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas is one of the greatest actors to ever do it. So having him as Hank Pym in this movie really grounds all of the moments that need to be really serious and have kind of stakes and dramatic tension Michael Douglas sells incredibly. I think Evangeline Lilly is really great in the role of Hope as well. And those two and Scott, the chemistry between them as characters and actors is just excellent. And I love the training montage that begins with those three, and we start to see Hope and Scott develop chemistry and feelings for each other. And something I need to mention now, the villain of this movie, a villain who I have heard mixed reviews on, but that's the same with Ronan, and I told you how much I loved Ronan. Darren Cross Yellow Jacket, in my opinion, is an excellent villain. If you consider like one movie villains throughout the MCU, I'll throw Darren Cross up against any of them, really, unless we're talking like Thanos. I really feel like Yellow Jacket, Darren Cross, he's a great character. He's a former protege of Hank Pym, and he took over Pym Tech as CEO. Hope is his, like, to me, he almost treats her like a glorified assistant. And he's being altered by the Yellow Jacket suit in the same way that Hank was affected by the Ant-Man suit, and that's why he has to look for a new wearer. And I just really think the actor Corey Stoll does excellent work as Darren Cross. I think all of his scenes are delivered with such a level of control and honestly, like, gravitas, but it's very contained. But he is so damn intense, in my opinion. I really love Corey Stoll's performance throughout this movie, and as the movie goes on and he's getting more unhinged, I think the actor Corey Stoll really finds excellent levels to that performance. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think he's like a forgettable, expendable villain. He is damn good. And I think that what they ended up doing to him as MODOK was a shame. That character should have came back in a Quantum Realm movie as like a horror movie character. His death at the end of the movie is like disgusting and brutal. His suit like crushes around him. The next time we see him, he should not be a meme. He should be a tortured monster like Caliban. And instead, they make him a joke, and it's a shame. Because this performance was excellent. And I think in the world where we're rebooting things, I would love to see a MODOK that is handled like a monster instead of the MODOK we got. Imagine if in this rebooted MCU, there's somebody running AIM, this like weapons company, and MODOK is the one behind the scenes, and it's what was Darren Cross, who was destroyed by Scott Lang and holds that grudge, and maybe he ends up being an Ant-Man villain or a Young Avengers villain because Cassie's on the team. I just think Corey Stoll's an excellent actor and gave a fantastic performance as Yellow Jacket here. And the action sequences are fantastic. All of the fights between Hope and Scott are really well done. All of the heist scenes that are actually done, like Scott breaking into the house to put the suit back, was really funny. But also the fight scene with Falcon was sick. The fight scene with Falcon was so damn cool. That is like the best version of forced MCU connection. Because when the rewrites happened, that anything that was MCU related, that opening scene with Hank Pym, Howard Stark, and Peggy, Falcon, the Quantum Realm, all of that was added in the Marvel rewrites. So I tend to lean on the fact that this movie was better for the changes that occurred. And did I write anything else specifically? Yeah, let me see what I wrote here. Yeah, I wrote a bunch of stuff about the Edgar Wright departure and the Quantum Realm and the fight with Falcon and how that being added was really really great in my opinion. And I think I've said all of their names, but I do want to run through the name of the main cast of this movie. Scott Lang, Paul Rudd, excellent. Hank Pym, Michael Douglas, chef's kiss. He is like, I don't know, he's a master of film acting. He is excellent. Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, just another great performance, as is Corey Stoll as Darren Cross. Then we have David Dastmalchian, T.I., and Michael Pena as the crew. I think Michael Pena, imagine if we did like a 30-minute Disney Plus special where we did Luis history of the entire MCU canon. He just breaks down every phase in 30 minutes and you do it like it's drunk history. Or you could do a what if series where it's Luis history and it's him telling stories. It could be him and the Watcher hanging out. That's a brilliant idea. I might have to pitch that to Kevin Feige. Then with the family, Lang family, Judy Greer as the ex-wife, Abby Ryder Fortson as Cassie, a great child performance. I think kid performances can be hit or miss, but she did an excellent job. I thought Cassie and Scott's connection was so real and well earned and felt. Bobby Cannavale, again as Paxton, just excellent. Then we have Haley Atwell as Peggy and John Slattery as Howard Stark. So again, y'all, Ant-Man to me, up to this moment in the MCU, is a top 5 movie. It surpasses every other movie that is like an origin story besides Iron Man. So at this point, my MCU ranking of a top 5, the rest, it's honestly kind of changing. Like, sometimes I'd prefer Incredible Hulk to Cap. Like, they're kind of interchangeable in a way, but my firm top 5, Guardians, Captain America the Winter Soldier, The Avengers, Iron Man, and Ant-Man. And Iron Man and Ant-Man are tied. It's not a big gap. They're excellent. So, y'all, go watch Ant-Man again. It is an incredibly fun movie. I really enjoyed watching it back. Next up in the MCU review is Captain America Civil War. If you know me, you know I didn't love this when I saw it the first time. I thought there were things that when you put Civil War in a title, you think there might be more stakes and finality. And I guess this movie leads to Infinity War in a lot of ways, but I'll save my thoughts because I want to leave myself open to a change of opinion. I've never said Civil War's a bad movie, I don't think. But I don't think it's like the top 5 MCU movie that everybody often says it is. So I'm excited to talk about that coming up, y'all. Thank you for watching. Hit like if you haven't already. Comment down below what you think of Ant-Man. Are you as much of a fan of this movie as I am? I feel like it feels like a different movie than most MCU movies. It's like an Ocean's 11 movie, a crime movie, but just absolutely hysterical with excellent performances. So, y'all, thank you for hanging out today. The Goose is out.